Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Well, today we're headed to the Lone Star State, Texas. We're talking endangered species.
That's right. Texas, big state, lots of different landscapes, tons of creatures, but some of them are really struggling.
Yeah, and we dug into some research on these awesome animals, and let me tell you, some of this stuff is surprising.
Definitely eye-opening.
For instance, did you know some mussels in Texas can live for like over 50 years?
It's wild. Think about it. These mussels, they've witnessed like over half a century of changes in the rivers and streams.
That's a long time.
Yeah, they're like living history books of the ecosystem. When their numbers start dropping, it's like a huge warning sign, tells us something's off balance.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so let's jump right in. First up, we got to talk about the ocelot. Ever heard of it?
Oh yeah, the ocelot, beautiful cat, super elusive, like a ghost of the South Texas brush.
Right. Imagine this cat, sleek, spotted coat, perfectly camouflaged, just melting into the dense thickets.
Totally. They're like masters of disguise in those thorny landscapes. But sadly, that very landscape is shrinking fast.
Yeah, I was reading about that. Habitat loss, it's a huge issue.
Absolutely. Urban development, agriculture, they're chopping up the ocelot's territory. What was once a huge connected area is now like islands of habitat.
So these cats, they're forced to cross roads just to find food or a mate.
Exactly. Makes them super vulnerable. Not to mention cars. Vehicle collisions are a big threat. It's a recipe for disaster.
It's really sad, especially when you consider they only live, what, like 10 years in the wild, compared to 20 in captivity.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. It's like the wild is just that much tougher on them. Okay, let's switch gears here. We got to talk about the dunes sagebrush lizard. Now, this little guy, he's a specialist living in a very particular spot.
Yeah, the Shinnery Oak sand dunes, right?
Yep. Those West Texas dunes, that's their home turf. They're perfectly adapted to that unique environment. But guess what? Oil and gas development and sand mining, they're destroying those dunes, just wiping them off the map.
It's crazy how those activities can completely transform a landscape.
It is. And on top of that, climate change. It's a global issue hitting these tiny lizards, too. Droughts, extreme temperatures, it all adds up.
It really puts things in perspective. Even the smallest creatures are feeling the heat. Speaking of unique habitats, how about the Texas Blind Salamander? Lives in complete darkness.
Oh yeah, this one's fascinating. A salamander that's totally blind, lives its whole life underwater, in caves.
Totally bizarre. And I read that they're only found in one place.
You got it. The Edwards Aquifer near San Marcos, Texas. One single spot on the planet.
That's incredible.
Talk about vulnerable. And the threats, groundwater contamination, people drawing too much water from the aquifer, it all directly impacts them. What we do above ground affects their world down below. It's a connection we don't always think about.
It makes you realize how interconnected everything is. All right, let's move from those caves to the rivers and streams. We got to talk about those long-lived mussels we mentioned earlier, the ones that can live for like 50 years.
Yeah, amazing creatures. And they're not just hanging out, they're busy working, filtering the water, keeping the whole ecosystem healthy.
So they're like the cleanup crew of the rivers.
Exactly, but when they start to decline, that's a bad sign. Means the water quality is going downhill, and that's bad for everything. The fish, the plants, even us humans, we rely on that water too.
So what's causing their decline? I mean, 50 years, they got to be pretty tough, right?
Oh, they're resilient, but they're facing multiple threats all at once. You've got development messing with the waterways, pollution from runoff, and then people taking too much water for their own needs.
Wow. Sounds like a triple whammy. And again, it all comes back to human actions. Okay, one last critter we got to talk about. The Texas kangaroo rat.
Oh, yeah, the hopping rodent of north central Texas.
They live in those dry, open areas, right?
Yep, they're like perfectly designed for those harsh environments. Powerful hind legs for hopping around, those cute cheek pouches for carrying seeds.
They sound pretty adorable.
They are, but even these tough little guys are facing an uphill battle.
What's the main issue for them?
Same story, different species. Habitat loss. Agriculture, urban sprawl, it's all shrinking their territory. And, you know, they only live for like 2 to 5 years, so they got to reproduce quickly, keep those populations up. Every year is crucial.
Man, that's a lot of pressure. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and it's clear these Texas species are facing some serious challenges. But I got to believe there's hope, right?
Absolutely. There are some awesome folks out there fighting for these animals. Conservation efforts are happening, protecting habitat, putting legal protections in place, raising awareness. It all makes a difference.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important for folks to remember. Understanding these species, understanding the threats, that's the first step to taking action.
So true.
I want to leave you with this thought. What can you do in your own little corner of the world to help? Doesn't matter where you live, we're all part of this web of life.
Yeah, even small actions add up, right?
Absolutely. Support a local conservation group, maybe reduce your own impact on the environment. Talk to your friends and family about what you learned today. Spread the word. It all matters.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. We covered some heavy stuff, but remember, there's always hope.
Always.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, stay curious.
Keep exploring.